We are halfway through Module 5, and we're going to come back to architecture. I'm just putting up a reminder here about our overview and our objectives for this unit. And as we reach into the second half of the 20th century, we see how architects begin to really fully develop this kind of high modernism, really take the machine aesthetic of Le Corbusier and other modernist architects to its fullest extent. And the name for this kind of high modernism in architecture is the international style. Its name refers to the fact that there's no specific cultural reference, there's no specific national reference here, but it's a universal style of austerity and extreme simplicity that can fit into any context. Now, of course, the pendulum is going to swing the other way, and we'll see the rise of what's called postmodern architecture later. Architects who feel like there's nowhere to go. We have reached the furthest extent of international style, and we need to turn to something else. But let's look at one of the best examples of international style architecture first. This is Mies van der Rohe's Seagram Building in New York City. And if you're looking at this thinking, I've seen this building in Chicago or Denver or Houston, you're right. International style buildings are very similar. They're very stripped down. Mies was the last director of the Bauhaus Design School in Germany at the time of its closing in 1933, when it was shut by the Nazi regime. He went to the United States and taught at ITT in Chicago from 1939 to 1959. And there's a lot of international style buildings in downtown Chicago because of his influence. Here we see the main characteristics of the international style. This interweaving of structure and windows, fenestration. We have exposed steel I-beams. The idea of being true to the material. You don't hide the structure of the building, but the structure becomes the form. The structure becomes the ornament. Remember Mies van der Rohe's famous saying, "Less is more." And we can't get more less than the Seagram Building. Philip Johnson, an American architect who was greatly influenced by Mies, designed the glass house in rural Connecticut as his own residence. And it's derived from Mies's Farnsworth house that he had designed in Illinois after the war. The house, in fact, contains the few things it does contain. It has these chairs by Mies, these armless, low chairs, very simple, exposed, tubular metal framing here. And again, this is a design that we see all over the place now. Look at your dentist's office the next time you're there. Look at IKEA or Target. This kind of example of high modernism, how it still is just superfluous today. You'll see that this is a pretty minimal structure. It is a glass rectangle, and we see floor-to-ceiling glass curtain walls. And these exposed I-beams here, this is providing the structure for the house. In the center, there is a circular brick enclosure here for the bathroom, but this really takes a kind of open floor plan to its furthest extent. The interior is open with the space divided simply by some low cabinets, that brick cylinder of the bathroom, but In A House of Glass, for Johnson, here the views of the landscape are what he referred to as the wallpaper. He said he has very expensive wallpaper. And you can see how that use of a glass curtain wall really blurs the distinction between interior and exterior, between the kind of human-made structure of the house and the natural world. So Johnson, in his own career, which was very long, he is an example of somebody who begins to react against the international style. It's, honestly, it gets boring, right? It's not specific to a time and place. There's all of these undifferentiated forms, so much so that all buildings look the same. And we can see this in American cities too, because of this big building boom in the 50s and 60s. A lot of American downtowns look exactly the same, and that's a result of the dominance of the international style. Johnson and Berge's AT&T building is the first skyscraper in New York City to counter the dominant modern aesthetic and break out of this steel and glass box mold. And we see this kind of almost comic adaptation of a Chippendale chest, so this very traditional American furniture style with that cutout notch at the top. Here, we see it referenced at the top of the skyscraper. And if we look at the entrance down below, there's this huge kind of barrel vault and column-like structures. That's another kind of not so serious reference to classical architecture. And this is our kind of move to postmodernism too, this kind of playful combining of different elements from past historical styles in a lighthearted way. Robert Venturi is really the architect who started this counter movement against international style when he wrote two seminal works: Complexity and Contradiction in Architecture and Learning from Las Vegas. What Venturi loved about Las Vegas is all of the kitsch, the billboards, the strip malls. He said, let's look at that vernacular style. In a way, this is similar to pop artists looking to the vernacular in their work. So this is the house he built for his mom. And it's in a suburb of Philly where houses are very traditional, the kind of colonial style, craftsman style. And this is anything but conventional. There's this big, wide facade, and right at the top, the gable is broken in the middle. And where we might expect to see the entrance, there's actually just kind of a big corner of a wall here, and the entrance door is off to the side in this kind of unexpected place. The facade is also not symmetrical. Look at the placement of the windows. This is very atypical. And that ambiguity and the unexpected comes into the interior as well. Look at the main floor here, where we have this kind of weird staircase that just kind of runs into the chimney, and then you have to walk around it. Nothing's really where we would expect it to be. And that kind of ambiguity, that unexpectedness, is really the hallmark of postmodern architecture. Postmodernism extends to other artistic forms as well, where painters, sculptors, and photographers, they begin to challenge, question, and reframe high modernism. Now, postmodernism is not kind of one cohesive movement the way that abstract expressionism was, or pop art even, but again, it's a movement that embraces ambiguity. We see the use of humor, kind of tongue-in-cheek gestures as well. And as a professor of mine in college said, if there was a god on the altar of postmodernism, it would be ambiguity and reveling in things that aren't clear, that aren't straightforward. I'm going to end the video here, and we will start with Basquiat when we return.